Greetings and salutations everyone, Scamber896 here, back with, again, something a little bit different. This will be my first ever foray into a contest or a competition entry, and the entry that this video will be for is for the James Donnelly contest for a review of his Batman script. Now, just before this video begins, if I look off camera, it's because I've got some notes on my laptop, so I'll be consulting those while I'm doing this review, so just a quick heads up for you guys. And first and foremost, let me say that this script, or this read that I did the night before last, is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic. James has done a fantastic job with this story, and I highly recommend that people check out this story, and there will be a link to this story below in the description, so you guys can check it out. But anyway, the way James is kind of promoting this, so to speak, is kind of an Elseworlds Batman story, and it's taken him 5 years to actually write this story with a friend of his. Now, according to his Tumblr page, which is where the script for this Batman story is actually located, the story came about when a friend of his 14-year-old son had written a story of some sort about Batman versus an unknown assassin, and James kind of liked the idea, and he kind of used that as kind of a building block, so to speak, for this script. He's taken references in this script of various Batman stories, such as A Death in the Family, The Killing Joke, and Son of the Demon. Unfortunately, I haven't read A Death in the Family or Son of the Demon, but The Killing Joke was a fantastic read by Alan Moore and Brian Boland, I believe is how you pronounce the guy's artist's name. But I will be checking those out eventually at some point. Anyway, so the way James is kind of selling this is as a 3-issue miniseries. Now, when I read this, I can honestly say that, and I'm going to speak directly to James because this is, like I said, a entry video for his contest, so I'm going to speak directly, or try and speak directly to James as if I was actually talking to him, sort of from across my room, so to speak. So, James, man, I'm sorry, but the level of scope and epic scale of this story warrants much, much more than a 3-issue miniseries, in my opinion. Honestly, when I was reading it, I couldn't help but think of other stories of a lot more than 3 issues in. I was thinking of stories such as Alan Moore's Watchmen, Jeff Loeb's A Long Halloween, and its sequel, Dark Victory. I was thinking along the lines of a 12 or 13 issue kind of maxi series, or sort of a story of that number of issues and that scale and scope. There's kind of an issue with this book that I'll get on to later. It's not really an issue per se, it doesn't affect the story in any way, but it is kind of me sort of giving a slight little nitpick at something about this story, but I'll get on to that later. So the story actually takes place in Gotham City in 1988 with Batman and his sidekick Robin, who at this time is Jason Todd. And they come up against this mysterious hooded figure who basically gets into a fight with Jason, who, again, let me just say that the characterizations of Jason Todd and Batman and all the other characters that I'll get on to in a minute, they are, in my opinion, spot on. Jason's characterization in particular, in this kind of little mini segment of this review, Jason's characterization, he's still the arrogant, brash, always rushing into things kind of kid from A Death in the Family, and from the flashback sequence in the animated movie Batman Under the Red Hood, which is, again, another great Batman animated movie that I think people should check out. But anyway, I digress. So Jason goes up against this mysterious hooded figure, who we quickly discover is a master fighter from James's descriptions, and he basically puts Jason down like that within a few seconds. He renders Jason unconscious, and Batman kind of jumps into the fight and sort of tries to protect and rescue Jason at the same time. And we sort of discover that this villain is that we come to know, or be known as the Unknown, is completely and totally ruthless, and I'll tell you why. And also I think that the Unknown will be a very, very worthy addition to Batman's Rogues Gallery, in my personal opinion. So that's just, again, another credit to James for writing such a ruthless and very worthy addition, in my opinion, to Batman's Rogues Gallery. Not to say that Batman hasn't got some great rogues in his Rogues Gallery. I mean, Batman, in my opinion, has one of the best Rogues Galleries in comics, in my opinion. But anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. The Unknown basically drags the unconscious Jason right in front of Batman, in front of his feet. And Batman has been incapacitated. I won't say how, because I don't want to spoil anything, because I want you guys to actually go and read this story, because it's absolutely fantastic. So he drags Jason in front of him, and he this is kind of a spoiler, but because it's so early on in the story, it's not really a spoiler. And plus, if you've read A Death in the Family, you know what happens to Jason in the end anyway. So the Unknown pulls out a gun, and he puts the gun to Jason's head, and he blows Jason's brains out, obviously killing Jason in front of Batman. And right as the Unknown is about to make his exit, he calls Batman by a very particular nickname, which is used by one of the members of his Rogues Gallery. I won't say the name because it's going to give away the mastermind or the secondary main antagonist in this story, and I'm not going to do that because it's quite a big reveal, and it's quite a surprising reveal actually. And while I'm on the subject, this mastermind or this secondary master antagonist is also one of my personal favourite Batman villains. So anyway, so the story picks up roughly 10 years later after the incident of Jason's death, but we do get kind of snippets of what's going on with Batman within these 10 years. It makes a visit to Arkham Asylum to meet and talk with one of his, again, another member of his Rogues Gallery. And in these 10 years, Batman has kind of become obsessed with finding out the identity of this villain, come to know as the Unknown, and basically discovering who would want his proteges killed, as well as Batman as well. So we have Batman basically talking with Alfred, and he's pushed everyone away in his Bat family, so to speak. So he's pushed away Nightwing or Dick Grayson, he's pushed away Oracle or Barbara Gordon, and in this kind of timeline in this story, the Killing Joke has actually happened. So the events from the Killing Joke have happened, and now Barbara Gordon is no longer Batgirl, she's officially known as Oracle. And Batman, or Bruce Wayne, has even pushed his oldest friend and his loyal butler Alfred Pennyworth away because of the level of obsession that he feels with trying to find out who the Unknown is and everything else. So that happens in 1993, and we also get another snippet we get in 1994 is Batman basically talking with Commissioner Gordon about the fact that since Commissioner Gordon has turned the police department around, I think Batman is trying to say, now this is just what I get from this scene personally, somebody else might get something from it, but I think that Batman is trying to say to Jim Gordon that he's done more good than Batman ever could, and he's done it legally and by the book, using the law, whereas Batman is an unlicensed or a masked vigilante that uses his abilities outside of the law to bring these criminals to justice. So, and there's also a reference again to the Killing Joke where Jim Gordon is basically saying that he wishes, or part of him wishes anyway, that he could have basically killed the Joker for what happened in The Killing Joke. Again, I won't divulge what happened in that story for anyone who wants to read it. Again, we pick up in 1998 with Batman, or Bruce Wayne, going to Jason Todd's grave and basically paying his respects, and he has a heated heart-to-heart discussion with Nightwing, or Dick Grayson, about the fact that he blames himself for what happened to Jason, and Dick is basically saying, you know, you're talking complete nonsense. You were there for Jason, you've been there for me when my parents were killed, you were there for Jason when he was orphaned, you've raised him, you tried to make him a better man than what he would have been if Batman hadn't taken him in, and he also was there for Dick, and if Dick hadn't had Batman or Bruce Wayne there for him, possibly Dick might have got down a completely different road to the road he did go down with Batman. So it's basically Dick saying to him, you know, you can't blame yourself, you know, you did what you could for him, and what happened was terrible and catastrophic, but it wasn't his fault. And again, we pick up, where did we pick up then? We pick up about, in the same sort of time snippet in these 10 years, which is 1998. Sorry if I just mentioned that twice, but we get Batman having a talk with Oracle about that, how he's holding up with, and how he's coping with Jason's death and trying to find out the identity of this unknown villain that killed Jason. And we also get the introduction of a new Robin. This time it's Tim Drake, and we get kind of the humour and the chuckles with Tim Drake that we get in this story that James actually puts in with the character of Tim Drake, and also through Tim's dialogue as well. Again, we get the Unknown show up again 10 years later with Batman and Tim Drake, who is now the new Robin, like I've said, going up against him. And again, there's more brutal action, there's catastrophic consequences, and we also get a nice little pop culture reference in this scene. I won't spoil it, but there's a certain line that the Unknown says before this catastrophic event, and he even says to Batman, I can't believe you didn't know this pop culture reference, blah blah blah. So this scene sends Bruce Wayne, or Batman, over the edge, and he basically he goes into a kind of a catatonic state, and we pick up with Bruce Wayne, or Batman, later on in Wayne Manor, but I'll go into that in a second. But we've seen this alone, this instance of Batman being mentally broken is very, very interesting, because we've seen Batman physically broken during the Nightfall story arc with Bane. We've seen other villains try to break him mentally, such as the Scarecrow with his fear toxin, or his fear gas, which is kind of as many Batman fans will know, is a hallucinogenic drug that Scarecrow uses to play on people's fears, but Batman always finds it within himself and his own force of will to break free of this hallucinogenic drug and sort of confront and defeat Scarecrow when he comes up against him. So we pick up in 2000 with Bruce basically sat in a chair in Wayne Manor, and we have Dr. Leslie Tompkins and Alfred basically tending to Bruce, and Dick comes in to the room, and he's come back to Gotham, and he's assumed the Batman mantle. I think, don't get me wrong, and I'm not criticizing this, but I think there's a tiny reference to Grant Morrison's Batman run, where Dick Grayson again assumes the mantle of Batman. Again, I won't say how for anyone who hasn't read Grant Morrison's run on Batman, where Dick assumes the Batman mantle in that particular story. But anyway, like I said, I digress. Just this scene alone of Dick basically seeing Batman or Bruce Wayne in this state, and he can't physically take it because he feels that Batman is this strong-willed individual that he's looked up to after all these years. He turns to Batman for his emotional strength, and his kind of solitude in Batman's presence, and his camaraderie that he feels with Batman through Bruce having raised him to become Robin and then move on to be his own man and become Nightwing. And just this scene alone is very, very emotional, because he picks Bruce up out of this chair and he's shaking him, and he tells him, you need to snap out of this, you need to come back, because you're not only my mentor, you're my father figure. And basically Dick just breaks down in tears, and even now, talking about it, I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling a bit teary-eyed from actually thinking about this scene, and that's not me laying it on thick, this is actually me being totally honest. So we get that with Dick, but it ultimately comes to no avail, and Bruce is still in the same state. A little bit later, we get Superman or Clark Kent actually show up and pay Bruce a visit, and he basically tells him that he feels that Bruce is the best of the best, and the other members of the JLA or the Justice League of America actually look up to Bruce, and he says that, you're the best of the best, and he says that, Superman basically says that he's having he's trying to talk to Bruce, but it's more of a one-way monologue or a conversation. But he basically says that I myself, bullets can bounce off me, and the only thing that can harm me is kryptonite, as most people know who are fans of Superman. But Bruce can't do any of these things. If somebody takes a shot at Bruce with a bullet, it's going to pierce his skin, his flesh, his bone, his organs, he's only human. But at the same time, Clark feels that Bruce, again, is the best of the best. And as he's talking to Bruce, he makes a reference to something that there's a certain word that triggers Bruce's kind of... he goes into a relapse, and he comes out of his catatonic state like that. Again, I won't divulge what this word actually is and what spurs him to actually come out of this catatonic state. But again, another credit I have to give to James's writing skills. The integration of other DC characters in this story is really well integrated, and in the context of the story, it does make sense. It really does. It doesn't sort of feel it doesn't leave you scratching your head and thinking, where did he come from? Or where did she come from? Or, it makes perfect sense. So we pick up again a few weeks later with Bruce Wayne or Batman in the Batcave training his body, and we also see the detective side of Batman trying to finally figure out this mystery of who the Unknown is and his motivations and why he would want to hurt Batman and also to hurt his proteges as well. And this is also a great scene, and he basically tells Dick that he knows who's behind this, who's been killing his proteges, and who would possess the sufficient knowledge to know the secret identities of Batman's Bat family. And again, we have another emotional scene where Batman is talking about breaking his own moral code of ethics, but Dick basically gives him an ultimatum. He says, if you do this, then I'm out. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back to, I can't remember the city that Dick protects as Nightwing, but I think, I know that he went off for a while to establish himself as Nightwing in another city, but again, the name escapes me at the moment, so I'll put an annotation or I'll put the name of it in the description. But again, we have another emotional scene where you have the two basically reconciling and coming to agreement about what is going to happen. And finally we have Batman and Dick. No, it's not Dick. It's it's Tim Drake. My apologies. I think it's Tim or I know it's a bit silly. This actually escapes me. It's either Tim or Dick that is in in the Batplane with Batman flying over the Pacific and basically teaming up with Batman to go up against the Unknown and the mastermind behind this whole mystery plot that has been running throughout this story. Again, we get another great scene of Batman's detective prowess and how he figured out who the mastermind is and their motivations behind the plot with the Unknown and everything else. Again, like I said, the mastermind is one of my personal favourite Batman villains. So I was quite shocked, and my mouth literally dropped open when I found out who this villain was. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be good. So, the one issue I'm going to address with this story, it's not really an issue per se, but I think this is my personal opinion, but I think this could personally be expanded upon a little bit, and that is the issue of a clone within this story. Now, in the current format that the script is in, and it reads more like a novel, it does make a lot more sense in a novel context. But in a comic book, I think personally we could have a bit more of a backstory and a bit more of a flashback on the creation of the clone and a bit more information. And I think that if you do this along with the writing and the illustrations, I think this could work even more so from a comic book standpoint as opposed to a novel standpoint, even though from a novel perspective this aspect of the story does work really well. But in a comic book context, I do feel that what I've just outlined might give a lot more, it might make this particular aspect of the story make a lot more sense in a comic book, from a comic book standpoint. Again, we have a great epic action scene towards the end, and we have a load of scenes which give a great satisfying conclusion to this fantastic story. Overall, this was a phenomenal read, and I'll say why everyone should read this fantastic Batman story. The writing, the dialogue, the characters, the characterizations, the descriptions of the events, the story, they were all fantastic, and you get the impression that, just bear with me, let me just replenish my my praises by just taking a drink, just bear with me. You get the feeling that James is a huge Batman fan, and he's very well versed in Batman's mythology and Batman's world and Batman's rogues gallery and what makes Batman tick and what makes Batman and what makes a Batman story an actual Batman story with a mystery, detective work, action, characters, dialogue. You know, you understand what I mean. You know, hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying. We also get like I said in the start of my review, the Unknown will be a fantastic addition to Batman's rogues gallery, in my opinion, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Unknown be a reoccurring new villain in the Batman universe and in Batman's rogues gallery, because as with I don't know if James is plotting or planning any other future storylines with the Unknown, but because nobody really stays dead in comics, so if James could possibly find a way with another Batman story with the Unknown to bring him back, that again makes sense from a comic book standpoint. Personally, I would love to read more about the Unknown and his motivations and sort of him coming into his own in his own context as a villain. The characterization of the Unknown is fantastic. He's utterly ruthless, and he's a really, really well thought out and well written Batman villain, along with the other characters that appear in this story, especially two of our secondary antagonists in this story that I won't spoil. But again, like I've said, it's one of my personal Batman villains. I'm not going to say who, but I'm going to wait a little while, and then I might do a Batman just a rundown of my favourite Batman stories and Batman villains and such and such. So if I do this video, then keep an eye out for that. So overall, I cannot recommend this Batman story enough. It's absolutely fantastic. I think it'll appeal to anybody who watches YouTube videos who's a Batman fan, anybody who's established on YouTube who is a Batman fan already. And if this is what the level of fan fiction is at the moment, I would definitely recommend you check out James's Batman story. I'll put a link to not only James's Batman script, but his channel as well, because he does some really great reviews of monthly comics as well, and also some other great videos as well. So there's also a link to the description as well. And if James puts out any more Batman stories, I for one, or not just Batman stories, but any more fan fiction storylines, I'll happily be reading them, because this was absolutely fantastic. Anything else I want to talk about? So again, I wish James the very best of luck in the near future. Hopefully, in a perfect world, this will be published, and I'm just going to throw out some artists that I think would be good illustrators for this story. I might be a little bit biased because they're some of my favourite Batman stories, but I think that I personally wouldn't mind seeing these artists illustrate this story. So we have anyone who is a Batman fan will probably recommend this once they've read this story. Jim Lee, who we know from Jeff Loeb's Batman Hush storyline. I personally wouldn't mind seeing Tim Sale from Jeff Loeb's The Long Halloween and Dark Victory, and also his collection of one-shots, which is Haunted Night, I believe. So that's another artist. And personally, now I don't know who the artist is on the story altogether, but I wouldn't mind seeing, I think it's either Frank Miller or Klaus Jensen from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns story arc. Now, there's a scene where, now I don't know who illustrated this particular panel, but for me, this was a fantastic panel in this storyline. So if anybody knows who illustrated this page, then by all means please tell me, because I don't know, and I really would like to know. It's the scene where Batman is on a horse and is trotting through, or cantering through Gotham on this horse, and you have a scene where Batman is rearing the horse on its hind legs, and you see Batman holding the reins, and the horse is obviously underneath Batman. So if anybody knows who illustrated that particular page, by all means please tell me. Like I said, overall this is a fantastic, phenomenal read. Highly recommend people go and check this out. Again, there'll be a link to this in the description, along with a link to James's channel. And just because I'm going to throw this out there, and I want to be a little bit different to anybody else who's going to do a contest entry to this, another fan piece that I want to draw your attention to is the Punisher Dirty Laundry video on YouTube. Again, I'll put a link to that, and obviously I'm wearing a Punisher t-shirt, so this has jogged my memory. It's a short 10-minute video with Thomas Jane, who you'll know from the 2004 film The Punisher, with John Travolta and Rebecca Romaine Stalos. And this storyline, which is The Punisher, Welcome Back Frank, with Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. This story was the basis for the 2004 Punisher film. So the Dirty Laundry is a fan-made Punisher video. It's only 10 minutes long, but I think Ron Perlman and Thomas Jane actually went into their own pockets and produced and made this video with their own money. So I highly recommend you guys go check that out. Some of you will know Ron Perlman from his recent appearances on the Sons of Anarchy TV series. Again, I'll put a link to that particular TV series, because it's absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend you guys go and check that out. So this has been my contest entry to James Donnelly's Batman script review contest, with some other recommendations and my own thoughts and feelings. So until next time, guys, this is Gambit896 signing off, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.